Tepu Namaste. This is Kasant Keparu here with another broadcast for you. And today I have a really special broadcast for you. I'm going to be interviewing Katherine Norland, actress, writer. Say hi.
Hello.
So she does a lot of inspirational videos. She's also an author and a writer and a filmmaker. She's just produced a feature film, and she's going to talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, what I want to talk to her about, and the reasons why I brought her on my channel, was that she has some really awesome advice for those aspiring artists, also for those individuals who are going through life and getting their butts kicked. I think that some of the advice that she has to offer is very pertinent to your situation, and she deals with a lot of different things. Katherine, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. You know, one of the things I really like what you were talking about in your videos was persistence. You know, it's not giving up. It's like no matter what's happening to you, just stay the course, stay focused, and things will eventually open up. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I really like that message.
Yeah. You know, my dad always taught me that it doesn't matter how long it takes. The years are going to pass whether you're working towards your goal or you're not working towards your goal. So if you've got something you've always wanted to do or something you're striving for and it hasn't happened and you think, oh, I'm just going to throw in the towel. Obviously, it's not meant to be because, you know, they say it takes 7 to 10 years to be an overnight success, and I've been working at this 20 years. I'm just going to quit. Maybe it's not meant to be. But if something is your life calling and that is your passion, you need to do that until you drop into the grave. No matter what that looks like, no matter what form that's going to take on, you need, if it's really your calling and your true life's purpose, why would you stop just because you don't hit a certain deadline that the world foists upon you as what they think is their idea of success and the timing it should take?
That's awesome. You know, I used to, I had a teacher, and I would come to him sometimes, you know, say, oh, my life is crap. It's gone down the drain. He says, are you dead? Is your life over? I go, no. He says, well, you still have time to change direction, to you know, make things better. So don't ever talk like it's over, you know?
Right.
And I like that. I like that message. And I think sometimes, like, we need to hear people like you remind us of the fact that, you know, stay the course, don't give up, because you know, we're constantly surrounded by family members and friends who may have the best intent for us, but they often say negative things, or you know, they're that devil's voice that says, you know, hey, you know what, you're not talented, this is not for you. You know, what do you say?
Right. No, for sure. Even especially when it comes from those who you love and who are closest to you, and then sometimes it's like you're stabbed in the heart, and they're just, you know, the world is already beating you up from every side, and you think, I can go home and I can find solace in my partner, and you know, my mom, my dad, whoever it is, and then they just pour salt on the wound. And then it really is up to you. Are you going to believe that? You know, they're coming from their perspective, and what does their life look like? I used to always say, when people would say, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And I would say, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with. Are they where you want to be? They're the ones putting you down, telling you why you can't and why it should have happened by now. But where are they? And if you wouldn't want to be where they are, then that's probably not, no matter how much they love you, that's probably not the advice you want to take. You want to take advice from people who are a couple levels higher and above than where you are, and where you're going, because they've just been down that route, and they can shed more light on it than someone who's not even in the industry you're trying to pursue, telling you all the reasons why you'll fail.
That is a very good point. Something I've talked about that in a couple of videos of mine. Is like, you know, it may seem a bit selfish, but there are people in your immediate social circle who are maybe on your level or down a grade that they can't help you. You know, you need to have mentors. You need people who are above you that can show you the path ahead because they've been through it. You know what I mean? And they can pitfalls and everything. And too many times we get caught up in listening to people who are not even on our same level. In other words, my point is that if you're trying to better yourself and you see that people in your immediate circle are not trying to better yourself, well, they're not the best people to take advice from. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and they were talking about how you need people in your life in the field that you want to be in that are pluses, minus, and equals. And the pluses are people that are higher up ahead of you that can really show the way and show you how to do it. The minuses, you need those too. They're people that are a step or two lower than you, but you can teach them how to get to your level. And in the teaching them, it solidifies what you know. And then you also need the equals, people who are where you're at that you can challenge each other to rise.
Oh, that's yes, that's a very good point. That challenging. You just said something that was very key too. Was like helping other individuals. And the way I help other individuals is like an example. And I don't go out there and proselytize and try to say, oh, you should do this, you should do that, because I've tried that and people don't listen. So what I try to do is I just go on my own path to make my own self better, and I see that what their response is. If they're interested and they're like, hey, I see you going to that meditation class, let me come along, then I know that they're rarely interested. But if they're just like observers, and I have one friend who means well, but all he does is talk, and he talks about putting together, you know, oh, I want to do this health book, and never, it's been 10 years now has he put together the health book. So I'm like, you know, you become aware of the fact that a lot of people are just talkers and they aspire, but they're not willing to go in there and actually do the work. And I'm all for helping people, but I look at it from the perspective like I'm going to be the best version of myself I can be, and that's how I'm going to help you by being a good person. And if you want to come along on my journey, you're welcome. If not, I'm not going to pull you along. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, you know?
Yeah, you know, I used to make that mistake a lot in the past. I used to go out of my way to help every single person that I saw in my life that had a problem, to the point where I didn't have time for any of my goals, and I would let these VDPs, very draining people, just suck me dry, pull me down. At the end of the day, I had nothing left for my goals and dreams. And maybe that was my way of self-sabotaging myself to not have to work on my goals and not have to confront the things that would come up for me. But I've now gotten to a place where, yes, I still help quite a few people, but this may sound a little pompous, but they need to qualify for your help. And what I mean by that is, if you're constantly helping someone, giving them advice, and they're not actually taking the advice you give them, you have to save your time and your breath and your energy, and not keep, you know, for lack of a better metaphor, throwing your pearls before swine. Not constantly pouring out on someone that's, you know, your lead a horse to water if they're not going to drink. You give them one or two things to do. You give them a deadline to do it. If all they come back with is a bunch of excuses, then they're probably not the kind of person you want to pour your time into, because that's not helping either of you. You're going to beat your head against the wall, and they're going to get mad at you and tell you it doesn't work because they're not willing to work for it.
Exactly. You know, and that's interesting, because we do want to help people, especially people close to us. And sometimes the way we can help them is by tough love, is like, you know, letting go. You know? And even that goes for parents with children, you know what I mean? Because
absolutely,
my mother wanted to do everything for me, and it actually backfired because it made me become needy and not self-sufficient. You know what I mean? So that doesn't work out in life at all. You're an author. You just finished a sensational book. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. I grew up. Well, from my teenage years, probably till 5 or 6 years ago, I had major self-esteem issues. I hated myself to the point where I could literally be brought to tears just by looking in the mirror. I thought I was absolutely hideous, and it did not matter what anybody said. If they said, "Oh no, you're not, you're pretty, you're this," it didn't matter, because I just thought I was disgusting. And I went through this whole journey of transformation where I went from self-hate to self-love by really digging deep into a relationship with God and finding out what he had to say about me as his creation, and how I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And I wrote this book, Poetic Prescriptions for Eternal Youth, examining earthly beauty from a heavenly perspective. So I'm no longer trying to fix myself up to plastic surgery or do anything to fit into what society thinks I should look like, or if I'm not this perfect size 4. And this was a very tough journey because I'm an actor, and when you're on that big screen, every pound and every pore is for everyone to see. And that was so wrapped up and tied into my self-worth that I mean, I would hide in the background when I would take family pictures so people couldn't see me. It was bad. And it took a long time to am I going to believe what the world says about me and what they think I'm worth based on what a number on the scale is? Or am I going to believe that the God who formed me from the dust of the earth and breathed life into me, what he has to say about me and my worth? And if I'm just this cracked vessel made out of clay, and I'm not perfect, I've got cracks all over in me, but maybe when I'm less perfect and I don't look like society's standards of what I should look like, maybe that's even better, because then the true me can shine through those cracks when people aren't, they're not thinking, oh, well, it's her looks or her beauty or her education or her money that got her where she's at. They can see the true God nature within you shine through better when you're not perfect. So I started to realize that being kind of a broken mess was actually a better example when I started to achieve the things I wanted in life, because that helped others see that they could also achieve the things they want in life. And it doesn't matter their status or their income. I mean, I grew up in a trailer park, and, you know, we had nothing. I remember my dad sitting us down one day saying, we don't have money for ketchup anymore. You know, thinking, oh man, we can't have condiments anymore. And, you know, it's all perceptions, and it's so fake. And when I meet people a lot of times in Hollywood, and they're maxed out to the cord, they're leasing these fancy cars to give the appearance that they have more than they do, and it's all for naught. And when you leave this earth, is your legacy going to be that you looked great in a pair of jeans, or is it going to be the lives you touched and the humanity that you changed because you lived out your full calling no matter what anyone else thought of you?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the trailer park, because I one of the first homes that we had, we were in trailer parks in Charlottesville, Virginia, and it's very interesting living in those things. You know,
Yeah.
People never understand.
Go ahead. When I moved out to live on my own, it got even worse. I ended up moving out to this complex that was built in the 70s that was supposed to be condemned in the 70s. It was temporary housing, and it was actually trailer park. It was like stacked on top of each other. Single wide trailer houses stacked on top of each other, and they would sway in the wind, and it's like tornadoes. We called it tornado towers because we lived in like tornado central, and it was so bad. I was so broke. I had no money. I had no car. I didn't have TV. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a job. I was living on ramen noodles and pig's eye beer. It was like some of the worst times of my life.
So tell me about it. Why were you so susceptible to that? Because the media propaganda is out there. You know, a lot of young girls. Some fall into it, some ignore it. What happened in your life to where it plays such an important role in defining yourself, your perception? You know,
I don't know if I can pinpoint any specific time where it was like, oh, now I know I'm gross and no one's ever gonna want me. And I think it was like little, you know, some people say that they got an angel on one shoulder, a devil on the other. I was just constantly listening to the wrong voice. I was constantly listening to the one that was putting me down, that was telling me I didn't stack up, that was telling me I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't going to make it. And maybe you've heard the analogy of, if you've got two dogs, you've got a good dog and a bad dog, which one are you going to feed? And I kept feeding the bad dog and believing it, and I wouldn't believe the good dog whenever I did something right. It was just a fluke, you know, it was just an accident. I'm not, you know. So I think that, coupled with seeing the portrayal of like how women looked in magazines, and I thought that was real. And I didn't realize till years later that even like a gorgeous, famous model would have like 8 rolls of film, hundreds of pictures taken, and then they would take the very best picture from those hundreds of pictures, and then they would Photoshop it even more and make this skinny woman's thighs 4 inches smaller, and you know, wouldn't show a single blemish, would get rid of every. I didn't know that was all fake. Obviously now I know it's fake, but then I didn't, and I just thought it's hopeless for me, you know.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I do meet some people, because I'm in film, who are very, very into that. And they're and what I also tell them a lot is like, you've got to unplug from that, because it's all an illusion, it's all lies, and you don't realize to the degree of how much of it is a lie, you know? But a lot of people who buy into it because the system is designed that way to make it seem as though it's real, you know what I mean? And a lot of people just spend their entire life caught up in that matrix, believing all of that, you know? It's unfortunate, you know, and it's good that individuals like yourself who are able to unplug from that and to really not have an outside dependence on things, like in terms of, you know, because I know a lot of people, myself included, were really concerned about how people saw me, you know, and really it doesn't matter. It's how you see yourself that's important, you know?
Yeah. Well, that is huge. Almost 16 million people had cosmetic surgery last year. So it's not something that's just an isolated thing. It's very prevalent. But you're right, it's all on what you think of yourself. And it, you know, it sounds cliche or whatever, but you can see the most drop dead gorgeous runway model who hates herself, who thinks she's disgusting and fat and she's 90 pounds. And at the same time, you can turn on some show like Jerry Springer, and you can see a very big, robust woman prancing around in a tiny little outfit and just think she's hot stuff. And it has nothing to do with your outer appearance. It has to do, you know, it's coming from here and what you think of yourself. There's a story actually in the Old Testament, and it's Joshua and Caleb. They go into the land to go spy out the land, and there's giants in the land, and 10 of the spies come back and say, well, we can't overtake them. There's giants everywhere. They're gonna squash us. They're gonna think we're grasshoppers. Well, they had this grasshopper mentality, and that's how they went through life. So when they did go back in to try to conquer the land, the giants looked at them and said, you're nothing but grasshoppers. We're gonna squash you. But they put it out there. So the way people are treating us are oftentimes, it's based on what we're projecting. We're putting it out there and we're showing people, this is how you can treat me. You know, if you're a person who's getting abused, sometimes you're putting out there that that's all I deserve. You just, you know, I'm your doormat, just wipe your feet on me. And you're not standing up for yourself. We're the ones that give clues to people how we should be treated.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good point, you know? And I talk about little things like self-communication, because I said there's certain ways that you act that indicate to people how they should treat you. For example, not making direct eye contact, which is a bad thing. You should always, it's a sign of low self-esteem, you know?
Yeah.
Struggle with that. In certain cultures like Japan, that seems an honorable thing. You're not supposed to make eye contact, you know? But here in America, the exact opposite. So a good, strong handshake and eye contact means that you are, you know, you think highly of yourself and you're ready to go out there into the world and take it over. Can we talk a little bit about the cover of the book? I find that so interesting.
Oh, yeah. I had this idea that I wanted to do someone who was like a plastic surgery victim, like she's about to have all this work done. She had her neck done and her nose done, and the surgeons are ready to do a bunch of injections. And even inside, I have a picture where I'm just letting it all hang out, and I've got my muffin top, and I've got like a surgeon squishing my fat, you know, where I didn't Photoshop it to make me look skinnier than I am. I was like, you know what? This is a book about seeing yourself and loving yourself the way you are now. I didn't Photoshop, you know, the picture on the front or inside to make it look better than it was. I'm like, look, this is me. Take it or leave it. I've come to love myself. I may not be your idea of beautiful, but now I think I am, and I've come from a place where I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. You know, years ago when I started to realize, oh, maybe I'm not ugly. Maybe that was, you know, before I got as solid and firm as I am. I would go to places and I would see, I didn't understand it at first, other women's reactions of me sometimes, where I would have never thought in a million years anyone would be jealous of me. But there's a lot of women in the world who are insecure, and if they see something that they think they don't have that you do, this antagonistic thing comes up. And I think that's why women can be so catty. And I think one of the problems we have in life is that we always compare the worst thing in ourselves to the best thing in somebody else. So if I don't like my hair because it's kind of thin and I feel like I don't have enough of it, I would look at some woman with thick, luscious, panting hair, and I'd be like, oh, that's not fair. She's got this gorgeous hair. And I'm not looking at any of her faults. I'm only looking at that thing that I want, and it's making me mad. But when I started to realize maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was, and I would see women sometimes treat me in a way where maybe they were envious of certain things, that I started to diminish myself. I started to put myself down, because I didn't want them to feel bad around me. I started diminishing, making my light more dim so they could shine brighter and feel better about themselves. And it was this weird cycle where I started to, you start to realize, well, maybe you're not that bad, but then you see that's affecting other people. And then so you try to squash yourself and to be diminutive and shrink your shoulders down. And I'm not gonna speak unless I'm spoken to, because I don't want anyone to think I'm stuck up or it's this totally weird cycle.
Wow, yeah, I can totally relate to that. You also said that you are a filmmaker, and it's very interesting in that field where you have a lot of young women who come into the business, and it's riddled with rejection.
Yeah.
And what they don't understand is that you'll hear every reason why you're not right for the role, and a lot of the young girls, they internalize that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't realize there's nothing wrong with you,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very, very important message. Have you met with a lot of rejection like that? Does that make this?
Oh, have I met with a lot of rejection? Well, I've had probably 700 auditions, and I didn't get 700 parts. So yeah, I get rejected probably anywhere. Probably lately, 19 out of every 20 times I'm rejected. I used to have a problem with that, but I don't anymore, because I've shifted my perspective. I've changed my perspective. And when I get a no, I just turn it around. No spelled backwards is on. I move on. And I realize it's just a numbers game. If you're in sales, or if you're doing auditions, making films, trying to find investors, you press on, because every no leads you closer to a yes. And if you think of it like that they're not rejecting you, you're just not right for what they're looking for, it becomes kind of exciting, because well, each no you get, that you're closer to a yes, because eventually you're going to get a yes. So shifting your perspective has made it a really great. I had a casting director tell me once, because a lot of actors fall into the trap of trying to be what everybody thinks they should be, and they think, well, the casting director wants me to be this certain thing. It's not really who I am, but I'm going to try to put that on top of who I am. So let's say you're Orange Crush, and you go to this audition, but you know they really want Diet Coke. So you go in and you try to put some Diet Coke on top of your Orange Crush, and then they're confused and they don't understand the flavor, and they're like, oh, this doesn't quite taste right. I don't really know. It's not really Diet Coke, but it's not really, I don't really know what this is. And they shove you aside because you're not being your true, authentic self, and you're not bringing your Orange Crush to the table. You're trying to be something that you're not. So nobody else can be you. You are so unique. I mean, you hear, you know, famous people when they get to a point and they say when they're finally able to be themselves, oftentimes they get roles that were completely, you know, it was written for a white guy, but a black woman got it because she just blew them away being who she was and not trying to fit in the stereotype of what they wanted. And I think the more we can do that, the more success we're going to have, because we're not hiding, we're not putting up masks, we're not, we're just not trying to be who we think we should be to fit something that might not even be what they're looking for.
You know, it's funny you said that. I'm not really sure if this relates or not, but I saw an interview with Robert Downey Jr. and he talked about, I'm trying to get this right, that he hated good writing because there was no way for him to put his own flavor on it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's because the script comes to him and it's well thought out, well written. He's like, well, you know, there's nothing for me to do here. You know, so.
Well, I would beg to differ, but yeah. I think it's easier with good writing. I mean, but then again, you have to be really inventive with bad writing, and then you got to wonder if the film's going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And when he concluded, well, the director concluded, he said to him, which I thought was very funny, he says, Robert, you just don't like paper, do you? You just want to do everything off script, I guess. You know?
Oh, well, yeah, then there's some really brilliant people who are, their improv is amazing, so I don't know. I think I prefer the script. I tend to think that writers know what they're doing and they have a vision, and you know, maybe there's a way I can improve it slightly, but I don't know. I tend to think people know what they're doing if that's their passion.
I remember I was auditioning some guy once, and he was reading, and first I think it was the casting director and the assistant director, and I started looking at each other, and nothing of what he said was in the script, and I was like, what is he doing? And he thought that was okay. I'm like, listen, you're a nobody. You can't come in here and start like ad-libbing and throwing things that aren't in the script. I'm like, are you insane? But
yeah.
Funny answer.
There can be times, that's really weird. I mean, there can be times where you can add a flavor, a line here or there, or at the very end of it, put a little button on it just to set yourself apart. But rewriting, that's pretty dangerous to think you're going to rewrite somebody else's script and then get the part.
Oh yeah, it can be very insulting to the writer. It could be, you know.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of writers, you know, their egos get bruised really easily. I run a writers group, and I do that the second Sunday of each month. So I had my writers group yesterday, and you know, sometimes we get a lot of people at the group, and we can run out of time, and it can be hard to give everybody the feedback they need in the amount of time. So sometimes when I do that, I end up being like short and quick and to the point, and I don't always sugarcoat like maybe I should. And you know, so the last month I had one member, he emailed me and he's like, you know, I know it's just me and I have really low self-esteem and I don't think what I write is very good, but when you gave me that feedback yesterday, I just went home and I threw my poetry folder against the wall and said, I'm never going to write again. So I'm emailing back saying, oh my gosh, I didn't, you know, it's coming from a place of love. I didn't intend for you to like want to give up writing. And he's like, no, it's not. I know it's not you, it's me. And I have to, you know, have thicker skin. And I know you're trying to help, but you know, there's something to be said about, your delivery, and not everybody is at the level where you're at, where they can take rejection on a level you can take it. I don't even think it's rejection anymore. When I get quote rejected, for me it's, you know what, they're casting a project, they want mustard and I'm ketchup. When they need a project where they want ketchup, they'll pick me. But until then, you know, I'm just not right for this role, and I don't make it mean anything. And I feel like that used to be a problem I had, and a problem a lot of people have is when you get feedback, you make that mean something about yourself, your value, and your worth, instead of just taking that piece of advice and looking at it and going, is this true? Will this make a difference? Does this ring true for me? Can I improve on this? I've had many people tell me, why do you rhyme in your poetry? Rhyming is so old school. It's so Dr. Seuss. Nobody rhymes anymore. That's not cool. But I love rhyming. It lights me up. It gets me on fire. It's like my favorite thing to do. Yeah, a lot of people don't like that. And they're probably not going to like my work then, because I like to rhyme.
No, I like what you said there, and I'm just gonna say this straightforward. Just I remember recently I shot a film, and I hired a bunch of people, crew for the film. I had a good producer on there. Anyway, I got into a discussion with a friend of mine, and I felt that his criticism crossed the line.
Yeah.
The production, right? And I said, if you want to ever be friends with me again, you'll never say that again. You know what I mean? And consequently, I stopped talking to him and ended the relationship. But my point being is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show and talk to you was because when I saw your videos, I saw that it was coming from a place of sincerity. Now, there are a lot of self-help gurus out there and people talking, but sometimes I think they're just spinning their wheels. It's like they're going around in circles, not really saying anything, and it's very surface talk, and it's not meaningful. But when I heard your stuff, it resonated. I said, she really cares, you know what I mean? And more importantly, I think that criticism is a fine art. There are people who know how to deliver it, and you have to do it in a way that inspires the person to look at both their good and their bad point. And sometimes you have, I'll even talk about some of the acting coaches out there who are very harsh, you know what I mean? And tough love is good, but sometimes you have to understand that a person may have gone through a lot, and what you just said just may put them over the fence.
Right.
It may cause them now to get out of the industry or something. So you have to be very careful on how you do that.
Absolutely.
That's why I say it's kind of like a fine art. And when I saw your stuff, I realized, I said, she really knows how to deliver it. You know what I mean? And that's important, because when I saw your first video, I was looking at it and I felt a lot better. And that's how I gauged it. I said, do I feel good about this or do I not feel good? And I said, well, I feel great after listening to her. And then that kind of propelled me into listen to the next video and the next one after that, and had this cascading. So I just want to really compliment you on that, because I think you have your finger on the pulse of what you need to do to really motivate and inspire people. Whereas other people, you'll listen to their stuff and either you'll be going, what, huh? Well, I don't get it. Or you'll feel down on yourself, because a lot of times, the thing is, some of these gurus, I don't want to go off into a tangent, but it always ends up making it seem like there's something wrong with you. It's like, you're not motivated enough, you don't have the fire within you. I'm like, well, I do, but life is kicking my ass.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If you don't feel like the person, this guru, has walked a mile in your shoes, and if they're sitting on their perfect pedestal and it seems like they've never gone through what you've gone through, how can you attain to that? I remember, this sounds really crazy, but I remember one of the best sermons I ever heard at church was when my pastor's wife admitted to the congregation she got so mad she flipped off her pastor husband. I was dying laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, if the pastor's wife is flipping off her husband, then I know I'm not the only one with problems in the world. Nobody is perfect. And that, it sounds so crazy, but I was so delighted to hear. People don't want to listen to perfect people because we think there's no way we can attain to that. But when they see that you're human and you fall on your face and you mess up, that's when people are going to sit up and listen. They're like, whoa, they're worse off than me and they got here. Okay, now I can, now I have something to go from. So I think giving advice based on what you've been through is so much more important than, there's a lot of people that give advice to people who, their places they haven't been, their circumstances they haven't gone through. I mean, there's people who were born with big portfolios that are telling you how to get out of the ghetto when they've never been in the ghetto. So, that their advice may be fine for middle-class people trying to get to the higher level, but, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. I saw there's like this billionaire mind group. where they talk about advice for startups. And I just recently I started a tech startup, and it's a lot of stress, and you're trying to think of, oh, I don't want to make any bad decisions, I don't want to make mistakes. And in this interview about, you know, advice for guys who or guys and girls who are starting their own company, Mark Zuckerberg said this, and I really appreciate his advice. He said, oh, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going to make, there's no avoiding it. He says, but the one thing to learn is to learn from the mistakes and keep going.
Yes.
Don't try to avoid them, because that's inevitably, he says, you know, there was one he had pointed out as an example of one thing where he made a mistake that cost him billions of dollars. And he says, well, I learned from it and just moved on and made the money back. He says, but there's no way I could have avoided that. You know, you're going to make these mistakes. And I really appreciate that, because we have this perception, especially with Hollywood stars, that everybody's perfect, you know? And you just think that their lives are so good, and you don't realize that, no, they're going through a lot of craziness.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see, like, for example, these ministers and these self-help gurus having some trouble, it just makes you feel a little better, because I don't want to ever have that perception that things are perfect in somebody else's life, because it really makes you feel inadequate. It makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, you know? Right. And I really caution people out there about when they're listening to certain people, and inevitably, like, there's a woman who I listen to, and she's brilliant, and she talks about, you know, finances and the economy and all that. And one of the things that she says is that we live in a consumer society, and it's structured so that things break down. So you'll, for example, you may buy a clock, you may buy, I don't know, a TV, and it's built so it breaks down after a certain time, so you have to buy something else. And it's not that you're picking the wrong things or doing something wrong. It's society structured in certain ways to have you not succeed, that you're forever spending money, because that's the way it is built for as a capitalist society. So I really appreciate someone being realistic in that perspective, instead of coming along and saying, you know, if your business is not working, it's because you're doing something wrong. If things are not working out in your life, you're doing something. You know, I really hate that attitude, you know?
Right. And the thing you said about making mistakes, if you're attempting anything out of the ordinary, even attempting the ordinary, you're going to make mistakes. And the people that aren't making mistakes, they're not trying to do anything. They're not stepping out of their comfort zone. And we're not meant to stay in our comfort zone. Anyone who has achieved anything great has had come up against so many walls. And a lot of people are saying now the best thing to do is make mistakes quicker.
Yes.
A lot of people in the old days they'd make a mistake and they'd wait and they'd sit on it and they'd dwell on it and you know, but if we make the mistakes quicker, we're learning quicker. We're, okay, that didn't work, what can I try next? And not staying in the mistake and dwelling on it and why did this happen to me, and how, you know, ask yourself the right questions instead of why did that happen to me. Ask, how can I do it better next time? What did I miss? What should I, you know, add to make it better next time? Or, you know, asking yourself the right questions so you can move on quicker and not dwell and stay stuck in that place. Everything is temporary, the good and the bad. So your mistake, your failures, it's temporary. That's why you have to get up quicker and keep moving.
Let's talk about something that relates to that, because I'm not really sure what your situation is. Are you married? Are you in a relationship?
Yes, I am married.
Okay.
And I have a 9-year-old special needs boy.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's I know you had spoke a lot about that. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think the work that you're doing is awesome. But in terms of relationships, I see a lot of people who get into relationships and make mistakes, and things don't work out necessarily. And, you know, it can be a very difficult and trying situation. And you're dealing with your own challenge with your son. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Well, every day is a challenge. Yeah, well, he was almost 4 months early. The doctor said he's probably going to die. He had a 90% chance of dying. He was clinically dead at one point. They were able to bring him back. He was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 4 months. That was excruciating. And every day it was touch and go. We didn't know from one day to the next if he was going to make it. You know, having a special needs child, it actually makes the divorce rate higher. There's a lot of it takes up a lot of time. It takes up a lot of brain space. It takes up kids in general, but when you've got special needs and kids that are on the spectrum, and I just thought because he was early, he was going to take a while to catch up, and he was just going to be a little bit delayed. And then they start telling me, oh, he's mentally retarded. And then I brought him to the doctors when he was 2. I'm like, how come he can't stand up? Other kids are walking it too, And then they tell me he just looks at me and goes, oh, he has cerebral palsy. I'm like, what? And I go, don't you need to do some test or something? You can just tell by looking at him. I was so shocked. And he had been working with speech therapists and physical therapists and occupational therapists and developmental people. And I went home and I told him, I said, oh my gosh, they say he has cerebral palsy. That can't be true. And the therapists were like, well, yeah, we've been hinting that to you for months. I'm like, what do you mean you've been hinting to me? How are you hinting? They said, well, we told you he had a lot of tone in his legs. I go, tone in your legs? I thought that was a good thing. I wish my legs were more toned. And they said, no, that means you have cerebral palsy. Anyway, I kind of spiraled down into this little depression, and they wanted me to talk to somebody, and they were telling me, oh, we think you're depressed and this and that. I'm saying, I'm not depressed. I'm just trying to deal with the fact that suddenly I have a special needs child, and then things were always a challenge. He didn't, they said he was never going to walk, and finally by age 3, we got him a walker, and we just did everything we could but we weren't helicopter parents. We weren't hovering over him. We let him fall down. We let him make mistakes. At age 4, he only had 50 words, whereas the average 3-year-old has 800 words. So just very behind in everything. Other 4-year-olds are having full sentences, and he's just being able to say more cookies, or, he could say cookie before he could say mom. That was harsh. But yeah, it's been a lot of challenges, a lot of ups and downs, I went through a stage where I even resented him, and I blamed him for not having the life that I wanted and the career that I wanted. And I had to go through a lot of self-seeking on my own to come to terms with, well, can I really blame him for not having the life that I want? Maybe my life, and not having the career that I want. And then I booked a national commercial with him. The only national commercial I'd ever booked was with my son. And so I was like, oh, I guess I can't really blame him anymore. My manager called me one day and she said, go audition for this commercial. They want 8 to 10-year-old boys who have Down syndrome or cerebral palsy. I said, 8 to 10? I said, Kelly, he's 3. She goes, he's tall. I told him he was 5. Just go. So I'm going to this audition feeling like a total fraud. And he messes up so bad. He blows it. He walks in on people who are auditioning. He wouldn't stay on his cue. He went up and started like touching the faces of the casting people. I was mortified. I called my manager on the way back and I'm yelling, don't ever send him on an audition again. He is not an actor. And then they call me and tell me I'm on a veil. It was like, what? And then we end up booking the job. It shoots on my birthday, which is a Saturday, so it's double pay. It was just supposed to be this little spot that was for the internet only, a buyout. It ended up going so well. They played it on national TV for 3 years. I paid off my SUV. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me. And before I was like blaming him that I don't have an acting career because of his special needs. So everything is perspective. We can blame whoever we want, but is that really the truth, or is that just our scapegoat?
He's lucky. He has the best mom in the world for that. You're his personal coach. You're going to get him through it. You're going to be
nothing phases him now. Last year when we were shooting the zombie film, and I had this scene where I was crazed and I'm cutting my hair with razors and my scalp is bloody and I've got blood dripping down me. I went to surprise him to see if I could scare him. I'm like, Timothy, look. And I had this crazy look on my face. And he's like, oh, is that it? And he walks out of the room. So it's so fun raising him in this creative environment. I'm bringing home like bloody cadavers, and he just,
Oh, wow.
He just doesn't bat an eye.
Wish my mom would do that. Oh my God, he's so lucky. But I wanted to touch on too also was this obviously put a strain in your relationship with your husband. Like, tell me about that. Like, how did you guys get through all of that? Because I know like relationships in general, where I was kind of headed, is challenging enough. But to have something like that happen in your lives, plus the fact, let me just say this, a relationship where one person is in the arts or in the film industry is super tough. It's super tough.
Yeah.
And so tell us about like, how did you guys band together to get through this challenge with your son, to come out and just, you know, just be happy, you know?
Well, I think a lot of it is believing that they're doing the best they can, not blaming them for where they're falling short. It's like when you go into a relationship, you better have both eyes wide open. But once you're married, you got to have one eye kind of closed and not see their faults, not try to compare them to anybody else or try to have them fit some standard or ideal that you think they should hit. You know, love believes the best. Love, when you love someone, you really believe that they're doing the best they can and that you're in it together. And also, you know, if two people are just on a straight line and sometimes they're going that way and you're going this way, and sometimes you're close and sometimes you're not, sometimes it doesn't work out. But when you have like a common goal you're reaching for and you're both heading towards that common goal together, whether it's God or a relationship goal, a child, you automatically, as you're heading towards that goal, get closer to each other. And communication, being open, being honest with where you're at, and not being afraid to let it all hang out, and not feeling like you need to hide or keep secrets, but being your true authentic self and doing something nice for each other. Give your spouse 3 compliments a day. Tell them they have great arms for hugging. Tell them that they're sexy that day. Text them you can't wait for them to get home. Whatever it is, if you're not making an effort to make them feel important or special, somebody else out there is going to do that.
Yes, exactly. You know, let me ask you: is he religious or spiritual or?
Yeah, yes, I would say he is. We're on similar planes in that effect. That we believe a lot of the same things, and maybe I press in a little deeper and longer, but we're on the same wavelength. You know, I'm more of a seeker, but he's a pretty solid ground.
That is awesome. That's awesome. That's great because you know, we're doing something now where it's called spiritual dating. We're talking about finding the right person and being in that frame of mind of looking at it from a spiritual perspective. Because too many times into a relationship based on what the other person has. It's, you know, how much money do they make a year? You know, what's their position in the corporate world? And we look at all those things that don't matter. And I think your situation is really good because, you know, when you have those external things and depending upon them, that's all you really in the relationship for. When a challenge comes along, will you two stay together? Will you two work with each other to get through the tough times? But let's talk about this great film. I mean, you showed me the poster and what's very interesting is a zombie film, right?
Yeah, well, this is one of the posters, Cannibal Corpse Killers. This was from the first day of shooting. I'm the one in the short blonde hair right there. You go to cannibalcorpsekillers.com. You can also find a couple of the trailers at on YouTube at Cannibal Corpse Killers. What makes the film different than most zombie movies is it's not a virus that's spread through getting bit. Like most zombie films, you get bit, then suddenly, you know, now you're going to turn into a zombie. Ours is more of a spiritual phenomena where it's actually one of the guys opens a portal to hell and lets all the demons out. And so our zombies are actually demons reanimating corpses.
Ooh.
So in order to get rid of zombies, we have to close the portal to hell to make that happen.
I like that.
So, yeah, it's a fun ride. I've got I think at least 3, maybe 4 kick butt fight scenes in it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a labor of like, we spent 3 years making it, and we just finished up post, you know, doing the sound and the editing and all that. So now we'll start looking for distribution.
Oh, that's great. That's so. Yeah. So we can't see it just yet, right? Is there a trailer released or anything?
Yes, there's probably 3 different trailers on YouTube for Cannibal Corpse Killers. Oh. We're on Facebook on Cannibal Corpse Killers, and YouTube. I think Instagram, Twitter, all those kind of things under Cannibal Corpse Killers. The director, Joaquin Montalban, I think his most popular movie, this is probably his 4th movie maybe, but his most popular one recently was The Legend of the Hillbilly Butcher. It has that fun, comedic horror flavor, you know, that people seem to like.
Oh, nice. Now, you mentioned the portal and all that. Tell us a little bit about the cast. I mean, who it looks like an eclectic cast there, you know?
Yeah. The cast. Gosh, well, the actors, actually, this guy in real life, he plays Pike, so he's like the lead person. He is actually a retired CHP officer. He's a cop, which came in handy on some of the shooting days when we were shooting where we shouldn't have been and doing guerrilla filmmaking, and the sheriffs, like the police came to arrest us, and they ran the plates and they saw he was CHP. Then they're like, oh, never mind. And they left us alone. That was fun. Teresa Hawley, she actually was the star of Legend of the Hillbilly Butcher. She's a fun gal. She plays like a kind of a spiritual character in this, where she can see glimpses into the future and she can see what's to come. Slim, he is our cowboy. Oh, there's like a glare. Let me see if I can take this out. Slim, our cowboy, this gun he actually created. He made this gun from scratch, and it actually shoots real bullets. And then there's my character. I don't know what to say about her. She's the quiet one. She's like the Clint Eastwood of the group. She doesn't say much. And then there's Boots, and he's like a retired military kind of guy. In real life, the character Boots, Nate, is actually married to Ruby, Teresa, in real life. So we had one of their kids be a zombie in it. I had to blow his head off. That was fun.
And you had actors playing the zombies, and they had makeup and all that, right?
Oh, yeah. That was a lot of fun. We shot the big epic end battle at the Paramount Ranch. Yeah, crazy. It's my first time producing a full feature-length film.
Ooh, right?
I had done production coordinating on a feature film before, and I've made a lot of short films where I've, you know, directed, produced, or acted, and done a lot of stuff. This is the first like feature that was you know, kind of trying. But now I'm already you know, working on a couple other projects. One I wrote, and then a couple other I'm commissioning other people to write for me. So
what do you like best? Do you like really giving out advice, or being a producer, filmmaker?
My heart is giving inspiration to people. My heart is not really into filmmaking, but when you're an actor who doesn't seem to be getting the roles you want, you have to create them for yourself. So if I was actually getting and booking roles that gave me great joy, I wouldn't go near producing, because it's a lot of hard work. But in order to play the roles that I want to play and not be just like waitress number 2, or, you know, the ditzy blonde or whatever, I you know, have to create my own work, because they're not knocking on my door.
No, I took a year off from filmmaking once, and all my friends were like, "Why are you taking a year off? What's wrong with you?" I said, "Do you understand how hard filmmaking is?" And I had been doing it so long. I just want to rest for a year. And I think people don't really understand how difficult and challenging it is to make a film, you know?
Yeah, and in reality, you're not really resting because you're letting all your ideas percolate, and waiting time, as I say, waiting time is not wasting time. It's prep time for the prime time. So when you have that downtime and you can let all your ideas percolate and see what floats to the surface, and it actually makes you more productive. Some of the richest, most successful people in the world, they always take at least one day off a month to do nothing but think, to do nothing but daydream. They're not the workaholics. Sometimes the workaholics who are just working 16 hours a day, they never get ahead. They never break through that roof because they haven't stepped back to rest their body, to rest their mind, to reassess what's working. So,
you know, there was two people talking about that. Resting, inspiration.
Okay.
I think it was Bob who talked about the chess champ, about how before you do his chess competitions, take a day off to where he's not thinking about chess. You know, so very interesting. So, give us some advice for aspiring actors in the business and what to look out for.
Oh, aspiring actors, one thing to look out for is when you move to any mecca where there's acting, there is vultures everywhere that want to swindle you out of your hard-earned money, to claim they have, you know, some of the scams, some of the scam acting schools, you don't need $800 headshots when you're just starting out. You know, a lot of stuff that they say that you need, all these workshops and classes, you don't need. You probably need experience more than anything. You can go get some decent headshots for like $200. You don't need the cream of the crop stuff until you're at a level where you're able to book those things at that level where you need to present yourself as this top-notch star. But when you're starting out and maybe you just got out of school, getting experience on film sets is going to be your #1 thing. I don't think you're going to get that experience doing extra work. You can do that just to see how a set is run and, you know, protocol and behavior, but you're not going to learn the most there. You're going to learn the most there starting out doing student films, doing some films for free, getting your legs wet, getting together with your friend and putting productions together, making your own projects and getting comfortable enough to then, you know, once you have some footage for your reel, once you have some experience on film sets, now you can start looking for an agent. Then you can start auditioning for the things that pay. You shouldn't be so quick to want to be a series regular tomorrow when you're just starting out, because you want to, like we talked about earlier, making mistakes. You want to make the mistakes on the free student films. You don't want to make the mistakes when there's $1 million budgets per episode on the line and then get blacklisted. And
good point. Good point.
You know what I mean? So make the mistakes with the people that are learning along with you, where they're not going to hold it against you later.
That's a good point. So leave us now in closing. Leave us with some great advice for life.
Great advice for life. Let's see. There's so many places we could go. I wrote something recently about how other people try to be what other people think they should be. And we talked earlier about be Orange Crush if you're Orange Crush, and don't try to be Dr. Pepper. A few weeks ago, I was thinking of what our value is and what are the masks and the faces we put up. And I wrote this short poem called Face Value. If you spend your life worrying and every day you contemplate what other people think of you and on their thoughts you concentrate, you'll try to be what they expect, all while forgetting who you are. You'll be whomever they think's best. You'll feign perfection, hide each scar. And if you do that long enough, put on false faces just to please, there'll come a day when you don't know exactly who you used to be. Then when your world comes crashing down and you are forced to drop your sheath, when all the masks have been removed, will there be any you beneath.
That's wonderful. That's
It's all about staying true to yourself.
That is awesome.
Whether you fit in or not.
Rhyming. That is beautiful. That's beautiful. Where can we, like, do you have a website? Where can we get more information?
Yeah, KatherineNorland.com. It's KatherineNorland. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Katherine Norland. I have KatherineNorland.com. And then a lot of like the inspirational, poetic, faith-based writing I do. I have Poetic Prescriptions on Instagram and Poetic Prescriptions on Facebook. And poeticprescriptions.com for finding this book.
Wonderful. And you can order that book on your website.
Yes, on poeticprescriptions.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here to talk about all these really great things and to help people who may need some advice and maybe wandering in the dark and looking for that beacon of light.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So this is Cosmetic. If you like this broadcast, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more broadcasts like this. And thank you, Katherine Norland. Thank you a lot. And we'll take care and see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.